So concurrent analytics, concurrent analytics is a process and it's a technique. It's not a specific thing. Concurrent analytics simply means that you're using at least two, if not more, levels of statistical analyses in a given endeavor. In this context, we're going to be talking about marketing campaigns. So all it means is that I might be using some descriptive statistics and some descriptive results. I might use some pre-selects. I might use some profiles, some segments, and then I might throw in a predictive model or two. So what I'm doing, another way of looking at concurrent analytics is intelligent analytics, intelligent statistics, where I'm taking sort of the best of the analytics that I have and I'm gearing all of them either simultaneously or temporally to maximize a particular campaign approach. So at the end of the day, the goal is I always want to pull the best absolute prospects that I can for any given campaign. The best prospects, for the most part, for our purposes here, the prospects that have the highest likelihood of responding to any campaign. And concurrent analytics allows us to do that. Most of you are already doing concurrent analytics. You probably don't formally look at it that way. You probably don't formally define it that way. But as long as you're using two or more statistical approaches or analytical approaches, you're using concurrent analytics. So the examples I have here, so these are sort of classic old school marketing approaches. So you have pre-selects plus modeled scores. A lot of people do that. That's very, very common. That's one of the techniques that we suggest. Similarly, segments and clusters on top of pre-selects or vice versa. So I might poll by a particular variable such as age, single family home, might be a minimum income, and then I might put a cluster or a segment, select mosaics, family type mosaics, older folks type mosaics on top of those pre-selects. All I'm doing is I'm refining and I'm making my prospect pool slightly more granular because my goal is I want only those prospects with the highest likelihood to respond based on the characteristics of a particular campaign, which is very, very important. The third example, it might be modeled scored data. I might use one model. Maybe it would be the propensity to look like somebody who has had a bariatric procedure, and I could put a second predictive model score on top of that. It might be something like those who are most likely to respond by direct mail or those who are most likely to respond by text. One of the things we know, for example, is that older folks, so if you're doing maybe a hip replacement type of campaign or an AFib campaign, those particular prospects are going to tend to be older. We know that anyone who's older, especially if they're at that 65, 70-year range or older, they have an incredibly high propensity to respond to direct mail still. So we will always want to factor in direct mail as part of that campaign scheme, knowing that direct mail is generally going to be a little bit more expensive. We want to do it anyways because we know we're going to get those older folks to respond. So there's a certain level of contextual knowledge about your sample that you need to include as well. But those are just examples of sort of, you could say, low-level, simple versions of concurrent analytics. Two or more processes used simultaneously. And again, at the end of the day, I'll talk about this a couple of times, the goal is to reduce campaign costs and/or increase response rates and/or increase ROI at the end of the day. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, and I'll give you a real quick direct mail example. Ultimately, one of the things I want to do, and I like to talk about direct mail sometimes as examples because it's very simple, and we know that if I'm sending out, for example, 4x6 double-sided glossy cards, that's an expensive endeavor. Those types of mail campaigns are expensive. So if I can take my 100,000 postcards and cut that down to 60 or 70,000, not having to send out 30,000 double-sided glossy postcards is already going to save me an incredible amount of marketing bucks. Now, if I'm going to get the same response rate with 60 or 70,000 as I would for 100,000, that just gives me all that extra money that I saved, mainly in printing and mailing costs for either the same campaign or other campaigns. So having the same response rate but saving a boatload of money on the front end from printing and mailing costs is absolutely huge for a lot of our clients. So I'll mention that quite a bit.